The lock clicked open with a sharp sound that made my stomach drop. I was already on my feet before the door swung inward, my hands clenched so tight they hurt. Warm torchlight spilled into the cell, stretching shadows across the stone floor, and three large silhouettes stepped inside. The large crocodile-shaped one came inside first. He filled the doorway, a thick tail dragging behind him, and his yellow eyes scanning the two of us excitedly. Behind him, two more nocturnes followed. One was a short, stubby lizard with cracked green scales and narrow eyes. The other was a large skunk with matted black fur and white stripe down its back. Both had crooked grins that made my skin crawl. They smelled like smoke and metal and something sour. "Get up, Kai," the crocodile guard grumbled, motioning with his chin. My heart slammed against my ribs. I could feel my breathing starting to go wrong. Too fast, too shallow. Kai stood slowly, the chains clinking as he moved. He didn't look at me at first. He just straightened his shoulders and faced them, jaw clenched tight. I took a step toward him without thinking. "Kakai," I stammered. The skunk laughed under his breath. The lizard crossed the cell in long strides and grabbed Kai's arm, rough fingers digging into his scales. The crocodile moved in close, unlocking the heavy cuffs and chains from the iron rings bolted into the wall. For a split second, a stupid flash of hope flared in my chest. But the cuffs stayed. The thick metal bands stayed tight around Kai's wrists, connected by a short chain that barely gave him room to move his arms around. They hooked up a separate chain, one that seemed like a leash. Before he could say a word, the skunk stepped forward and shoved a clamp over Kai's snout, locking it shut with a sharp click. Kai let out a muffled grunt. His eyes drooped, defeated. "Kai!" I said, my voice breaking. I rushed forward, but the lizard shot an arm out, shoving me hard in the chest. The air whooshed out of my lungs. "Easy, human," he said, amused. "Don't get all excitable and such. It ain't your turn." The crocodile guard grabbed Kai by the shoulder and shoved him toward the door. Kai stumbled, caught himself, then finally looked back at me. Our eyes met. "Don't panic," his gaze seemed to say. "Don't do anything stupid." I nodded fast and shaky, even though my hands were trembling. They didn't bother binding me. Instead, the skunk hooked his claws under my arm. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind me I wasn't going anywhere. The lizard took my other side. Their grips were loose, casual, like I'd already been decided as harmless. I didn't know why I hated that more than the chains. They hauled me out of the cell. The door slammed shut behind us with a hollow boom, the echo swallowed almost instantly by the noise ahead. Kai was pushed forward, the crocodile's hand heavy between his shoulders, steering him like a farm animal. We were moving toward a large crowd gathered in the center of the chamber. Laughter, shouting, metal clanging, boots scraping stone. The air felt thicker here, warmer and buzzing with energy like something big was about to happen. I looked up and noticed, at the entrance, where the stone staircase and that large wooden elevator ended. From this angle here, I could see a glimpse of the outside light. It was daytime. The sunlight barely peeked through for a moment, then, at a different angle, it was gone again. Where are you taking us?" I demanded, my voice coming out thinner than I wanted. The skunk burst out laughing. The crocodile and the lizard joined in. I felt a pit form in my stomach. "You'll see," the lizard muttered, leaning close enough that his breath burned against my ear. More bandits were pouring in from the lit tunnels at the far end of the chamber, filling the space. Everyone was gathering for this. As we approached, the crowd noticed us and slowly parted, creating a path through the mass of bodies. Dozens and dozens of nocturnes stared at us as we passed, smiling, laughing, cheering. Torches flared along the walls, their light flickering across their scarred faces, sharp weapons, and scattered, big wooden crates. They shoved Kai forward into the open space at the center. He dropped to one knee, head hanging low, eyes fixed on the stone floor. The skunk shoved me forward, too, hard enough that I stumbled and caught myself beside him. The crocodile guard lifted his voice. "Got the prisoners, boss," he shouted with pride. I followed his gaze. Near one of the long tables stood a large brown feathery shape, hunched over with its back to us, wings folded tight. A massive talon lifted a metal mug and set it down with a dull thunk. A low laugh rolled out of him. "Your little stunt in the meadow was cute," he said, still facing away. "Real cute." Another chuckle. "But you had to know it was only a matter of time before I would find you again." Then he turned. His beak was scarred and chipped, and a long pink slash cut across his face, tearing through one eye that looked cloudy and gray, dead and sightless. The feathers around the wound were jagged, dark, and uneven, like they'd never fully grown back right. His one good eye, beady and black, landed on Kai first, then slid past him just as quickly, dismissing him. Then he looked at me and stopped. For a heartbeat, the entire chamber went quiet. Drock tilted his head, his feathery brow furrowed, studying me like I was a puzzle piece he hadn't expected to find. His smile widened slowly, something sharp and delighted flashing across his face. "Well," he murmured, almost to himself, "that's interesting." My pulse thundered in my ears. Kai strained against his restraints, a muffled sound forcing its way past the clamp on his snout. Drock didn't look away from me. "Look at that," he went on, chuckling now, low and pleased. "Another human." I swallowed hard. He took a slow step closer. "Tell me, little human," he said lightly, almost friendly. "Where's the other one?" "Ivory," I whispered. The name barely made it past my lips. Drock's head tilted again, slower this time. His good eye narrowed, sharp and hungry. He hummed. "You do know her." He reached out before I could move. One talon hooked under my chin, lifting my face up toward his. The touch wasn't rough. Worse than that. Careful, deliberate, like he was inspecting something fragile he planned to break later. I couldn't breathe. His talon was cold against my skin. Heavy. I stared straight into his beady black eye. Even the blind gray one felt like it was still watching me somehow. He slowly wrapped his massive claws around my neck and pulled me closer to his face. He leaned in close and breathed in slowly, like he was figuring out my scent. Then he smiled. "Oh," he said softly, "I see it now." My heart slammed. "Sisters," he murmured, almost pleased. "Have to be." His talon tightened just enough to make my throat ache. Same face, same fear. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he'd never see her, that Ivory was safe, that he was wrong, that he'd already lost. But my mouth wouldn't work. I stood there, frozen, while he loomed over me, feathers brushing my hair as he laughed, low and delighted. "Well, well," Drock said. "This just keeps getting better." He released me suddenly. I staggered back a step, my legs weak. I rubbed my neck and took quick and quiet, deep breaths. "No matter," he went on, turning slightly, pacing like he was thinking out loud, "whether the other one hides behind Arovia's soldiers, or their precious council, or their beloved elder," he scoffed. "It doesn't matter." He stopped and looked back at me. "She'll come." My blood went cold. "They always do," he said, "especially when given the right incentive." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Drock's gaze flicked past me, to Kai. Kai met his stare without flinching, his golden eyes burning even behind the muzzle clamp. He didn't move, didn't bow his head, didn't shrink in fear. Drock noticed this and his smile widened. "You like it?" he asked suddenly, tapping a talon against the pink scar that cut across his face, the dead gray eye beneath it dull and ruined. "My little souvenir?" The crowd quieted. Drock stepped closer to Kai. "Your old friend," he said lightly. "Scrappy, brave." His voice sharpened. "Sloppy, dead." Drock lifted a talon, holding it inches from Kai's uncovered eye. "Starlim nectar patched me up real nice, don't you think?" His talon traced his scar. "But sight?" He laughed once. "No, can't fix everything." His talon hovered there, close enough that Kai didn't even blink. Maybe it was easier for him without his glasses. "Funny thing about eyes," Drock went on, his voice rising so the whole chamber could hear. "Once they're gone, you don't forget it. You can't. Every waking day is a reminder." He pulled his talon back at the last second. Kai abruptly exhaled through his nose. Drock turned away from him, spreading his wings slightly as he faced the room. "You see, they want us blind," he called out. "Blind to the truth, blind to the ever-persistent void, blind to the lies and the laziness of the council." Murmurs of agreement rolled through the Nocturnes. "They tell you to trust them," Drock continued, voice booming. "To follow, to wait." He laughed harshly. "And look where waiting and following that pathetic excuse for leadership has gotten us." His wing swiped his mug from off the table and it tumbled to the ground. "The void relentlessly continues to grow. Our homes continue to fall to it. Noctavir will starve." He lowered his voice and drooped his head. "Eventually, the void may consume all." He turned back to me slowly. "But we know the truth," he said. "Humans are the cause of this mess." I stared at him, confused, terrified. "And humans," Drock finished, smiling wide, "will end it." I shook my head hard, the panic finally breaking through the icy feeling in my chest. "She won't come," I blurted, the words tumbling out. "She can't. She's hurt. She's just lying there in the hospital and—" "The hospital, eh?" he repeated like he was tasting the word. His one good eye gleamed. Kai looked at me with worry in his eyes. He grunted through his snout clamp. Drock laughed. Not loud, not wild. Just a low, pleased sound, like something clicking neatly into place. "It figures." He looked at his talons as if he were admiring them. "I did give her a bit to worry about, didn't I?" he said with a smirk. "What have I done?" He straightened, spreading his wings slightly as he turned to the crowd. "Where are the hawks?" he said calmly. Two large birds, identical in size, appeared from the crowd of Nocturnes and stepped forward, their feathers sleek and dark brown, their eyes sharp and serious. "To Arovia's hospital," Drock continued, finally turning his full attention back to me. "Bring her to me." The two birds looked at each other and nodded, then leapt into the air and soared toward the entrance. "No!" I shouted as I watched the hawks disappear from my view. Drock gestured his wing at the two of us. "Take them away," he grumbled. The guards grabbed Kai and me again, dragging us away as laughter rolled through the chamber. As they pulled on me to head back, I caught one last glimpse of Drock, still smiling. He turned away as the crowd swallowed us. The Nocturnes were laughing like we were part of the night's entertainment. Their voices echoed off the stone walls, bouncing and multiplying, until it felt like the entire keep was laughing at me, because I'd messed up. "They know she's in the hospital." My throat tightened painfully. My hands shook, but the skunk and lizard's grip didn't even adjust. They didn't need to. I wasn't going anywhere. My legs felt like jelly. I stumbled when they yanked on my arms, my boots scraping against the stone. Kai stayed upright beside me, even with the cuffs, even with a clamp locked over his snout. He didn't thrash around or fight it. He just walked. And somehow that made everything worse, because he was being strong, while I replayed my mistake over and over in my head. Torches flickered along the walls, shadows slipping and stretching across the floor. Somewhere behind us, the cheering swelled again, like Drock was still talking, still working them up. My stomach was churning. I didn't know how long it took Hawks to reach Arovia, but I knew it was faster than anything on the ground. It was only a couple of hours of a walk, but by air, they'll be there soon. And Ivory was hurt. She was in the hospital, weak and exposed. And now something is coming straight for her. Panic surged so hard it made me dizzy. I stumbled and the lizard jerked me forward with a rough tug. "Keep up!" he shouted. We reached the cell. The crocodile guard shoved Kai inside first, then me. The skunk followed just long enough to unhook the short chain they'd been using to steer Kai, leaving the cuffs locked around his wrists. Then he stepped back. The door slammed shut, and the lock clicked. The sounds were heavy and rang in my ears. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just stood there with my back against the wall, staring at the door like I could burn a hole right through it, like I could stop the Hawks just by wanting it badly enough. Then my knees gave out. I slid down the stone wall and pressed my hands to my face, trying to stay quiet, trying not to cry because crying wouldn't fix anything and I didn't have time. But my chest still heaved anyway. I can't believe it, I whispered. The words barely existed. I can't believe I told him she was in the hospital. Kai made a muffled sound through the muzzle clamp. It was sharp and urgent. He shifted closer to me, the metal cuffs scraping softly against the stone. In the dim light filtering through the barred window, I could see his shoulders rise and fall. He couldn't speak, but he could still look at me. Kai lowered himself to the floor across from me, careful despite the cuffs. His golden eyes locked onto mine. Not angry, not accusing, but focused. Like he was saying, "We didn't have time for this." I wiped my cheeks with my sleeve, smearing dirt across my face. "I didn't mean to," I whispered. I panicked and Kai shook his head once, firmly. Then he lifted one cuffed wrist and dragged the metal edge lightly across the stone floor. Scrape, scrape. He did it again. Harder. Scrape, scrape, scrape. My breath hitched. "The wall," I breathed. "The tunnel." Kai nodded quickly, motioned his head toward his unused chains on the wall, then at his wrists. His chains. "They didn't hook you back up," I whispered loudly. He tilted his head toward the corner near the door, the thin crack in the mortar by the door's hinges. The weak spot, the one I'd started digging at before. Then he tapped his cuffed wrist lightly against his chest. "Where's my rock?" I whispered, hope flickering as I searched the ground where I left it. "Got it." Kai's eyes sharpened. He glanced toward the small barred window, toward the torchlight outside, then back at me. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, thinking, calculating, then opened them again. We didn't have much time. "How long will it take for the Hawks to reach Arovia?" I whispered. "Won't soldiers see him coming or something?" Kai hesitated, then gave a small shrug. He couldn't know for sure, but his gaze slid back to the wall. He looked determined and ready. I followed his eyes to the wall connected to the door, the one I'd been scraping away at. The stone looked the same as it always had, thick, rough, and nearly impossible. But now it wasn't just a wall. It was the only thing standing between us and saving Ivory from Drock. My stomach twisted again, but this time, beneath the panic, something steadier took hold of me. "We have to get out," I whispered. "Even if we can't make it before they reach her. We have to try. We have to do something." Kai didn't hesitate. He nodded once, and even with the clamp locked tight over his snout, I could almost hear his voice anyway, gruff and confident. Then, we didn't wait. I crawled toward the wall and clutched the small rock. My fingers burned. My hand was numb. But I didn't care. Scrape, scrape, scrape. "If we can break through the cement around each door hinge like this bottom one," I started, as I continued to scrape where I left off. The bottom door hinge was already exposed a bit from the sliver I carved into the cement mortar, causing it to loosen. Kai shifted closer, pressing his shoulder against the stone beside me, ready to help however he could. I swallowed hard. "We can do this," I whispered. His gold eyes met mine, and he nodded. Outside the cell, the nocturnes roared with laughter, confident, careless, sure of their victory. After a while, the commotion began to quiet down, though, and many bandits went back to their tunnels or back to their tables. Inside, I scraped at the wall until my hand burned. Kai used his cuffs and own claws to do the same. "If we can break the hinges off this door by tonight, then we can try to escape while most of the nocturnes are sleeping," I said between scrapes. Kai nodded. "We have our plan, but we didn't have much time. Please work. Our only other hope is that Flurry made it back and Ivory is awake and somewhere safe in Erovia, out of the hospital. Somewhere Drock couldn't get to her. Please be awake, Ivory.